Hello and welcome to the Dog Savant Podcast. My name is Brett Endies. I am a professional dog trainer. This podcast is for you if you are a dog or puppy owner seeking training and behavior advice. If you are a client in the real world looking to supplement the work we are doing together. And if you're just anyone interested in dog training, dog behavior, the life of a professional dog trainer, this podcast is for you. I always ask, please don't forget to subscribe, share, review, tell a friend, share with me your experience, how the podcast may have helped you. And if you have any questions, you can contact me, dogtrainingla@gmail.com. This is the only way that other people can find the podcast is if you help me, and I will continue to put out episodes as often as I am able to. Anyone who's been listening, I do apologize for not putting out consistent content. Busy in the real world, we just had to move. I'll talk about that here in a second. But I do appreciate any feedback people have given me. A lot of my clients listen to this. Thank you so much. I sincerely hope that this helps you. That's really what motivates me to create this over the years. I think we're at episode 110 or 111. I haven't checked, but nonetheless, we've got a good amount. Most of it is related to dog training, puppy training, problem behavior resolution. So if you are interested in any type of subject matter, you may want to go back and to the catalog and listen to past episodes. A lot of times they're labeled appropriately. If you have any questions, my dog has this issue, what is a podcast that might cover that? Or can you please do a podcast in the future related to this subject? I would love to hear from you. Okay, so I'm driving here to Colorado from Las Vegas. I'm going to visit my daughter and my best friend for many, many years, John. I'm going to go there for a couple days. I have the week off. So I'm just on the road. Figure I will kill some time and record this. As you know, I always do it from the car, at least for now. But here's an update. We moved into the new house last month in Las Vegas, so I'm setting up a little studio in my office there. So I'm going to at least have probably better audio content, and then at some point I'm going to add a camera to things and maybe put out some video footage of me doing the podcast here. Maybe more regular episodes, maybe guests and whatnot. So stay tuned for that. With that, we moved to the new house. It was great. We're having some issues. We, bought in one of these new construction neighborhoods where they're building 20 houses at a time. Me who has experienced just renovating houses, building small houses myself, I know what quality versus subpar construction looks like. We're dealing with a company called Taylor Morrison. I'll out them. Why not? They haven't been the greatest. They're all warm and fuzzy, all helpful. You see the model home. It's beautiful. Granted, now we're not buying a multi-million-dollar home, but this house was not cheap, and it is in a reasonably upscale area in Las Vegas. And I think that we were expecting to get into something that was going to be more or less problem-free. A few little issues here and there. Totally expected. They have a warranty on the home. You get, whatever. We're having some major issues. They put, I don't want to be the complainer on the podcast, but why not share my life a little? They put an HVAC duct literally literally in a tiny closet that is supposed to be where we store food. Now, granted, it's not a walk-in pantry. It's a very small closet that will accumulate heat or cold very quickly, and that makes it quite challenging to keep food. And it's also just not where you're supposed to put a vent. It was an error trying to be hidden by one of the subcontractors the builder used. Another issue, just a lot of little quirks, chipped marble on a shower. Still waiting over a month for our shower enclosure. The master bath, another HVAC issue, the vent. I had an independent company come and look. They to cut corners, put a straight ducting above it instead of a 90 degree, and it collapsed before even its first use. And that's going to require sealing tear out to replace that and remedy it. Worst of all, aside from, again, little odds and ends, I don't need to list them all, was that I noticed 2 nights ago that when I'm walking down my stairs, with all going on, I just have been so caught up in the move and everything else going on in our lives and business, that one of the walls was crooked in the landing on the stairwell. That's concerning. So we have to tomorrow, today's Martin Luther King Day, tomorrow I'm going to contact an attorney that I've been referred to who specializes in this and see what the next step is. Of course, we have recourse, but it's going to be a major pain in the ass dealing with all this. We all have issues to deal with, so not complaining, but figured I'd share this, let everyone know what's going on here. Let's see. What else? I went on a hunt in Texas a couple weeks ago with my recurve bow. I'm a traditional archery hunter, and I got my first mule deer. Up to this point, I've only been able to get small game and whatnot. And I'm not a trophy hunter, although I will have the deer's head mounted. I do eat the meat. I have a freezer full of venison now, about 50 pounds of it, because of my hard work and a lot of years put in. This is about 4 years that I decided to get back into archery. I had done it when I was younger, but I had never considered hunting. So I found a mentor, my friend Brian. He took me on. Originally, I used a mechanical bow, a compound bow, if anyone's at all familiar. A lot of my clients are LA-based and people listening to this, so this may be scary or unfamiliar to you, but I figured I'd do a little education, in this department. Anyone knows me knows I'm not a sociopath. It's just an outlet. It's an instinct-driven passion for mine, and it also feeds my family. And I like to know where I do eat meat, right, regardless, whether it be from a supermarket or from the woods. So I figured I would, hold myself accountable and see what it's like. And again, I love it. All the hard work is paid off, and now I'm hooked forever. But anyway, I decided to get into hunting with a mechanical bow. The gentleman, Brian, who I went with, we go in this place in California. It's an army base. You can go hunting for wild pigs on the weekend. And he used a stick bow, which is a long bow, just a regular, old-fashioned bow that primitive people would have used back thousands of years ago to hunt for animals. And aside from it just seeming amazing, plus you have to get very close to an animal to hunt that way, which makes it, much more intimate, and you have to put in effort, and it's much more fair to the animal as a human, where you don't have technology helping you with your hunting. And there was just no problems involved. I didn't find that there was these, constant issues with the mechanical, bow that I was always having to navigate, go back to the car, ruin my hunts early, So although more accurate, didn't take as much effort to be proficient with a compound bow, or, of course, if you're using a gun to hunt, which I've never done. The traditional route was something that really just appealed to me. So within probably less than a year, I sold the compound bow, and I just got a long bow, which is just very difficult, and the learning curve is going to be too great. I didn't want to, learn while hunting. You don't want to, you want to be very accurate, or you're not going to be able to kill the animal quickly and, without suffering. So I went to a recurve, which is just more accurate in general if you're going to be a traditional archer. And I practiced and practiced and practiced. And fortunately for me, I took the time. I had the right people. A man named Tom Klum, who's really popular in the archery community, had mentored me and coached me. I had gone hunting with a few other people who were just experienced. I had gone on a guided elk hunt last fall, though not successful. And I ended up being, I'd say, a not so great intermediate hunter, which in my case, a guy who's a Jewish man growing up in urban New York City at 47 years old, to decide at 42, 43 to engage in this sport, this hobby. I'm proud of myself. I think it's a feat, that not everyone can achieve. Well, I think anyone can achieve. You just have to work hard and commit, and that's how I am. And that's, why when I do my job or anything that I put my mind to, I give 110%, and I expect that from dog owners. That's why I'm, so intense, if you will. Even on the podcast, hopefully I can convey that to your dog, their experience is intense. We may be chilling, living in Hawaii on the beach, but your dog's an animal. They can become too hypervigilant, too instinct-driven in a life that's well provided for, because most people who are, doing training with their dog own their dog and care for them quite well. But the dogs still sometimes can become imbalanced, anxious, and discontented just because their lives are too easy. They're not getting this diligent, consistent approach of structure and leadership, to condition better habits or train the puppy from the get-go to instill these habits from the start so that the dog does, have a balanced mind, which is not being over or under reactive to everyday life events, movement around the house, new situations, distractions, listens, socially is appropriate, and all those things that come from a well-trained, balanced dog. But that means you have to be into it. You can't just phone it in. You can't say, well, I'll dabble in it, I'll do it here and there. It's either you do it or you don't. Because, I've talked about in this other podcast, I think one of the last ones I did was dogs who resist place training or crate training, in these past podcasts. And it's because we're not matching, in certain cases, the dog's enthusiasm, which isn't helping them at times, to have this agenda where they're just following every move the owner makes, or they're getting overstimulated by all the coming and goings because they haven't learned how to make calmer choices. Or, so if we're doing it half the time, or one of the members of the family is being consistent, the other people aren't, the dogs are going to get confused and still try to default to their normal, the way that they thought was the way of operating. I always give the example, if you have a road that it's only one way to get to a certain place where you need something. It's like, okay, let's say this is where the water is and there's nowhere else in the water. You live in the desert. However, when you're going over this road, it's so poorly built with bridges that are rickety. It's just going to, at the very least, take a long time to get there, be rough on your car, very uncomfortable, bumpy. And sometimes you could die because the bridge could collapse, right? Or there's a cliff on the other side. Right, but you're so used to taking it to, if you will, survive for water, that you just get conditioned to it, like you automatically. It's like when you're in a car going home from work, you're like, boy, I wasn't even thinking about it. Here I am in my driveway. I got home, right? Wasn't even conscious of all the turns I had to make. So that's what happens with conditioning. Even humans, we're creatures of habit. But this is sometimes what leads your dog to, like, well, if I stay hyper alert and follow the owners everywhere and overreact to everything and anticipate all the time and wait for something to happen instead of chill and get led through my life calmly, well, that's how I get fed. That's how I get attention. That's how I get, my needs met to live another day. And here I am existing. So, why change? Well, here's your place training. Here's a calmer way to make these choices and still get the same needs met and life accomplished. But that's what I'm used to. So 9 out of 10 times you're being consistent, and one time they still are too hypervigilant until you're in the clear. You shouldn't be doing training forever if you are this consistent, like I'm explaining. And your dog still wants to fight the training. I got to get back to that old road. It's like, but that old road's going to take you off a cliff. The bridge could collapse before you get to the water. It's a nice, new, smooth, well-paved, direct, efficient road that we're creating for you, right? The calmer pathway to get your needs met at the times where your agenda is getting the best of you and causing anxiety, reactivity, and whatnot, right? But they still feel that road is open. We got to close that road, right? I talk to clients. I give this analogy all the time. So you got to just shut that road down. Put up a mountain in front of that. You're not passing. You shall not pass, right? From the Lord of the Rings. You're just not getting through that road, no matter what. The only way you're going to get through this road, even though we're still building it, and you're going to wait till we build another section of it, is you're taking the smooth road, whether you like it or not. You're going to keep trying to veer to that road, but it's going to keep blocking you because there's no outlet to get to that rickety old road. No matter how bad you want the water, you're going to have to trust this new road. But when you see this road laid out for you over and over again, you're going to get the water, and you're going to realize and get more familiar with an easier means to get your needs met, right? So that's really, that's conditioning 101. That's human psychology. That's how we overcome our own human issues. It's just a lot more challenging because we have free will and our minds are a whole lot more complicated, and we do have egos and all that stuff that can override instinct and all that. And it's hence why I love hunting, because when I'm in a hunting situation, it's pure. I'm in the woods. There's no external stimuli. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not interacting with anything but nature, and I'm hyper alert, but in a way that is pinpointed, single-pointed, focused on one intention, not where, a guy like me who relates to the dogs I work with because I get so overstimulated, is that hyper-alertness, but now you're like in society and traffic and all these coming and goings and technology and phones and input, and it just gets too much. So, that's again, with an animal, they don't need to take that on, so you can simplify their lives and they're happier because you're going to provide pretty much every element of what they need at any given time. But, it can work for us. And even if you want to take it to what is this calmer state, teaching a dog to focus on commands and place equated to single-pointed focus when a human learns to meditate or calm their mind or just not overthink things, it feels calmer. You get conditioned to a calmer way to respond to things that would normally become anxiety-driven. And it's so hard. I work on it, and it'll probably never be fully accomplished. But you just want to improve it and do the best you can. Dogs, it can just be resolved. If it's a puppy, teach them this is the way it is. Whether your dog's chill or not, you just have to see the specific times. And I've talked many, many times over about it in other podcasts related to place training and structure and separation anxiety and why dogs need this kind of engagement, even just when you're interacting in the home, hanging out, doing your routines for both you and their needs. And then if you're consistent, it's just, I can't stress enough, it's not a lifelong proposition. And the dogs see it pretty quickly as an easier route, and they're happier doing training and don't require it as much because of your, initial diligence. Okay, so that is, that's a point that's very important. I go through this often with clients who initially don't get the gist of how consistent they need to be. And, of all things, you have consistency, timing, repetition, and tapping into a dog's instinct and how the learning theory works for animals. So that is that. As you know, my podcasts, I keep them reasonably brief. I think when I get my studio set up, I will maybe extend them, and I think I'll be able to Skype in or have them set up a cool little tiny office, a little cool little man cavey type space. I hate that term, but that's the best way to describe it. And I'm collecting all the things that I've accumulated, just little highlights of my life, my family, time with my daughter, accomplishments, things I'm proud of, things I think are cool. And I'm just gonna have them just all over, little tchotchkes, as you will, if you know what that term means. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited. I always talk about it, but I think this will fun. I'm really making an effort. I'm even getting reclaimed barnwood for the wall, right? The obligatory man podcast background stuff, right? But it's also just going to be a nice, cozy place where I can relax, do my Zoom calls. That's the other thing I always mention. I do a lot of Zoom calls. If anyone is not in the Las Vegas or Los Angeles area, I do Zoom, Skype, FaceTime calls and training. It works great. I today did a walking lesson where, it does require to make it easier, another person so they can give me a point of view with the phone. But if you have ear pods, we do in the home work. It's no different because I'm training the owner, and it works by me demonstrating handling techniques with my dogs, coaching the client through training scenarios, and staying interactive in between lessons with phone, text, and video/picture communication, so I can continue to coach them in between our time together. And also they have access to my in-person classes if they're in Los Angeles or ever visiting, so they do get some real-world training as well. So if you're interested, or if you just have any questions you'd like me to help you with or answer on the podcast, please send those again to dogtrainingla@gmail.com. I do have a question from someone who, this is a serious kind of case, and actually I'm working with one like this right now. Dangerous, serious, intense. It's stressful for the dogs and the owners alike. Dogs that are in the same home and don't get along, and I don't mean that they have little scuffles or you got to keep them separate when they're eating or chewing a bone. I'm talking about these dogs will lay into each other as soon as they catch a glimpse, or at the very least, as soon as everything's calm, but as soon as something moves or changes or a new event happens, it's not just a scuffle. It's dangerous. Dogs can get hurt. Owners can get hurt, especially if you have large breed dog. So I stress. I think I've even done a couple podcasts in the past, like a year or two ago. Getting serious, I think was one of them, was called, just about like, hey, this is, if you are not going to be all in with this kind of situation, you're going to have to find an alternative solution or live forever like your animals are in, I don't want to use a reference, Alcatraz, right? Where they have to be, the prisoners can't make contact, or they're gonna go at it, or escape, whatever you want to call it. Analogy. Sorry, it's a bad one, but I try my best. So, first of all, you do keep them separate. If there's been incidents, it will escalate, and it's going to get worse and worse, right? So you need to only expose the dogs, right, when they're under control. So let me just read the question and then I'll get a little more into detail. So, hi, Brett. I listened to your podcast. Thank you. The advice has helped me, create more structure in my one dog's life. But we brought a new dog into the home. Everything seemed fine at first, but after a few weeks, the dog I've had for many years who seemed to love other dogs is now going after the new dog, who, although seems to need training, is overall a friendly social dog. Okay, so number one is, was your first dog truly social, or was it under certain conditions or terms? Was your other dog only good like when you weren't on your premises or not around you at the dog park? So sometimes, dogs social, they're fine, they play with other dogs, but it's circumstantial or environmental as far as how they will or won't tolerate another dog in their space or shared environment. The other thing is the second dog is probably coming off to your first existing dog as a dog who needs order, balance, and is having erratic, unpredictable behavior patterns in their, just way that they react. I was talking about dogs following, getting too stimulated, just giving off that energy that makes another dog feel like, if someone's not going to deal with this, I certainly will step in. And then, of course, it goes too far, and the other dog ends up overreacting, and sometimes as an animal will go to a place of, well, I'm going to get you before you get me, and it doesn't sometimes create a good outcome. In the best case scenario, they're just drawn to the other dog and they're going to mouth them and growl or whatever, and then again you get this extreme example where it could be a dangerous situation. You want to start focusing on, and this is always helpful if you have more than one person in the home, because multitasking with two dogs that are going to go after each other, it's again, you've got to be very skillful at it. So make sure both dogs have very good place training. They both respectively are not getting overreactive, over anticipating, following, running up to, expecting, asking for, just chilling out, kind of minding their business, waiting to be instructed when the routines and elements of the day to get their needs met are happening. Because also you need that place training to be something, hey, when I make you go in your place, I can rely that you're going to stay there, so I'm not sitting there holding leashes, and and that might be how it starts, but you want to get where place becomes an implied understanding. When you're in this spot, you're calm on command, so now we can start integrating you, so when at least you're around the other dog, you're in a calmer state, and then historically you feel that's the norm. Over and over, we reward that. You feel that we're leading you, we're covering the imbalance you perceive the other dog to have, and that's gonna, it takes time. It can take months of just over and over, and then you team that up with structured walks where they feel that they're, in the same pack, they're making calm associations, but you are trying at absolutely all costs to prevent any kind of negative reaction when they're around each other. And then again, the other dogs may need more exposure to other dogs, so they become more desensitized to other dogs present, and just over and over. And in between, you have to keep them separate if you're not going to be able to guarantee that they're going to be calm through and through. And I'm not saying don't put in the time and work. Every day put multiple hours into this, even if you're doing 15, 30-minute sessions and walks throughout the day. Ramp it up. I mean, you got to just get the nose in the air with this, this thing. You got to get it going before you're smooth sailing. So, and I'm trying to express it here, this is a serious friggin' thing. It is not for everyone to handle cases like this. I've seen enough of them to know not every owner is equipped, and they've always not been, ultimately as successful as I'd like. Not because the dogs weren't capable, it was just that it's just not for everyone, and I don't blame the particular owners who couldn't navigate the situation to get this rehabilitated. And then even when you're working with the dogs, you might want to create a tether system. You want to, have gates just in case a dog slips out of your hand with the leash or the collar fails. You have a backup system. You may have to get serious. You may have to use real training collars. You may have to add e-collars to training just to get better control of the dogs immediately, because who wants to live with two animals in their house who want to go at each other? Again, something can go wrong. Someone leaves a door or a gate open, boom, here's our problem again. So really, really be diligent, hyper-vigilant. I use those terms a lot because it's a theme when I'm working with clients, and I'm sure it would be if you're someone listening to this or a client. You got to keep that in your mind, and it is exhausting work, effort. I have complete compassion for your situation, As a client, anyone who I work with, I'm always there. If you just need to have a sounding board, I can't move in with you and help you with this 24/7. And quite frankly, some dogs don't do this in the presence of a trainer or when we're in our training session. I have to paint a picture, like I'm trying to do here on this podcast, of what's going to be required when it is real life going on and you're just you with your dogs. And it's, I'm not there other than my ability to walk you through a situation on the phone or on a Zoom or something, right? So, and even muzzles, things like that. And even like just supplementary, make sure they get enough exercise. They all have enough training in addition to the training you're doing to integrate them. Everything helps. It's like a pie chart. You have to have a holistic, CBD supplements, other type of, I'm not big on medications. That's a last resort thing. It's sedatives. It's not going to help with the learning process. But anything that's more natural, homeopathic, why not? If you're using it with a thorough, consistent training program, all the better. At least you knew you threw the kitchen sink at it, right? So I hope that answered your question. I hope that describes to anyone listening, even if you don't have dogs that are aggressive, your dog just is reactive on a walk, or your dog just isn't listening, or your dog is peeing everywhere, and you got to be super consistent about the potty training, right? All of this applies. It's just, again, when you have a serious situation where two animals are looking to go after each other in a life or death fashion, and you or your animals can get hurt, you need to treat it as such and not take it lightly and do the work, so at least you did your best. And then even after a couple months, take stock of where you're at, because even then, I as a trainer cannot guarantee that this will be where your dogs are just living together and we have sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns dancing behind them while they're lottie-dying the rest of their life. But that can happen. I've told my story. My girlfriend Kate, or my partner Kate, her dog, my dog Argus, did not like my Rottweiler. Yes, it was circumstantial. It was only when I wasn't there, when I was around, he would not do that because he was protecting his mommy. And when mommy got more strict, structured, and we created more rules and did just like I talked about, had them only together when she was around with structure, place training, structured walks. It took about 3 months, but they can be together. They're not best friends. They just coexist. It's like two coworkers that have to sit down at each other's cubicles side by side, but they still want their job and they know better than to take it further than they need to. But they enjoy life together. They sleep in the same bed. They do activities together side by side. We leave them alone again, but it's just, they're not going to be best friends. And that's fine, as long as they're not fighting and there's not a dangerous situation and they're not fully discontented around each other. That's the best you can hope for, right? So that's ideal, or even better, your dogs start playing and became buddies. I've seen that before too. Worst case, you did your best. You did every single thing you could. You gave it as much time as possible. And then you have to just, again, take stock of where you're at and see if that's something you want to continue pursuing, or, my dogs are great when I have them under control and we have that fully locked in, but just leaving them free off leash together or alone, I don't know if I trust it ever. That can happen sometimes, and we'd have to have more of a discussion after we've taken care of the general basics like I had just explained. Okay, so again, send your questions. I love answering them. I know for a fact hearing me respond will help other people with these issues, so keep them coming. And again, don't forget to review, subscribe, that's important. Share with people. My social media is at the Dog Savant, THEDOGSAVANT. And just, let me know. It motivates me to want to keep sharing this. I have a lot of experience, and I know it will help more dog owners if more people hear it. So keep it coming. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.